Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cut It to the Jase, a new addition to the basketball.com.au content realm. And we've got a very exciting new addition to our team in NBL legend, 15-year vet in the NBL, 424 games, and of course, former Boomers guard as well, won a Commonwealth Games and an Asia Cup with the Boomers, Jason Cadee. Jason, welcome to the team, mate. Really excited to have you on board.
Braden, thanks, mate. Yeah, no, I'm pumped. Obviously retiring, and then going on a new journey and separate part of my life in business. I guess it's brought on different opportunities, and I'm really excited for this one. Like, I think it's just for me to be able to just talk basketball and just talk different things around the game. I'm really actually looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be huge, mate, and give an insight we really don't see in the basketball media space. Someone who's freshly out of the NBL. First of all, mate, I've got to ask, what's it like first year not having a preseason and everything to prepare for in 15 odd years?
Weird. I haven't missed it at all preseason. Although players nowadays, preseasons don't go any bit near as long as they did originally. Like early days, we were doing almost 10-week preseasons, which was eight of that was no games. So now I think the preseason's 4 to 6 weeks. So I wish I was doing those the whole time. But no, it's been good, mate. I've enjoyed it. Bit more time around the family, obviously, less trips away. Definitely still busy with step one and a lot of the things we got going on there. But I've really enjoyed this kind of after basketball journey that I'm now experiencing.
And now stepping into the media space, obviously joining us as a regular columnist and contributor, doing written and video pieces covering, everything from the NBL, WNBL and college, NBA and everything happening around Australian basketball. But speaking of Australian basketball, mate, what a time to be involved considering, we've spoken about it so much, probably the most anticipated NBL and WNBL seasons in ages. We've got so many college stars, so much success on the international level. It's a really exciting time in Australian basketball.
Yeah, I think obviously the NBL. I mean, geez, I don't remember the last time you looked at 10 teams and you could put them down against each other. If anyone was to write down tips right now, you would actually be just guessing because you just don't know, and the level and the depth of talent across all teams is so high. And then you move over to the WNBL, rebrand, whole new space for them and where they're trying to go. That's just so exciting for a league that doesn't probably get the respect it deserves from the talent point of view. It's been one of our most consistent women's sports and leagues for so long. And you look at how well our girls do on the international stage. I think it's finally going to get to where it needs to. And then college and all, it's really it's a different world right now with what's going on at college, and we're seeing some very exciting kids come through and take on that journey. It's a big school, so I'm really excited to kind of follow the journey of some of these kids and where they go.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we've got so much happening in Australian basketball, but it is NBL week with the start of NBL 26 this Thursday, a huge round one to start. Now, we're going to get stuck in to a headline point heading into the season, but one thing we wanted to speak about, Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, some breaking news around them with them planning to part ways with European import Franz Blytenberg. And, only a couple of days out from the start of the season, Jace, that's a huge move from the Phoenix.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not. We have seen many of these before where it gets to that point in the season and some people make the move. Now, maybe Southeast has found someone in the background that's popped up they didn't think was available. And it's always interesting, right? People that come from that Euro lifestyle to over here, it is different. And obviously they've seen something, and Josh has seen something they did not like. That they didn't think they could push forward with, because you're basically a few days out now saying we're not even going to start the season with this guy. We don't think it's worth it. We think we're better without him. So, look, big move. I also think we're at that point, and it shows where the league's at. Not many teams want to risk it. I don't think there's room for error. And so I think from their point of view, make a move now. We start the season with a group we're really comfortable with, and let's add to this group as we kind of get into the thick of it. And hopefully sooner rather than later, they can have that other piece that can complement what they've already got. Because once again, they're a team that's going to be in that fight of, can we get off to a good start to really set up our late season?
And Josh King in his first full year with the Phoenix, obviously looking to make moves and and try and get into the playoffs and go even better than they did last year. But we're speaking about it off air. You have some history and some experience with players getting released just before the season during your NBL career.
I do. I was just trying to think back after I saw it, and the first one I ever I was still hurt. It was after my car accident, but we had an import on the Gold Coast that basically, I think it was in the first 2 or 3 weeks, got a cramp or had a little bit of a calf tightness, and that was basically the end of him. They said, "I'll see you later," and moved on. And unfortunately, too, he actually was a very well-known NBL player. He was a bit older at that stage of his career, but he'd had a stint with the Tigers, which alongside Andrew Gaze and Leonard Copeland, he'd done pretty well. But it's not unheard of, and it's kind of the nature of the business, especially for Americans or imports or Euros, whoever coming out here. It's an unfortunate part of it, but it is it's basketball no matter where in the world you are.
Yeah, unlike Joey Wright to make the tough decisions, something he's known throughout his career, mate.
He never shied away from anything like that. In fact, you would almost say he enjoyed the harsher conversations which many steer away from.
Yeah, absolutely. I think going back to the preseason chat we had, I think some of those toughest preseasons you probably went through were under Joey Wright. But anyway, we'll move on, mate. Heading into the NBL season, the most talked about team this offseason is the team you recently played for, the Adelaide 36ers. You played the last couple of seasons with them, obviously moving on from the likes of Kendrick Davis, but signing arguably the greatest import to ever play in the NBL in 5-time MVP, Bryce Cotton, bringing in Montrezl Harrell, Zylan Cheatham, Flynn Cameron. They got a pretty star-studded list, mate. What are your thoughts on what they've done throughout the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive, right? I think you can say what you want, and obviously Adelaide's had this theme for a few years, they spend a lot and they spend it in the wrong ways. I don't really think you can say that this year about them. I think they've spent the money in the right places. Anytime you can bring in Bryce, and I still remember where I was. I was actually in Dubai. I was there for work, but part of work was going to the EuroLeague, so it was a pretty tough work trip. And Mike Wells calls me, guess what? We just ticked over and signed Bryce Cotton. And I was kind of like, no, you didn't. Yeah, we did. And so even he knew the extent of what they've just done. He knew the importance of that in the move. And Mike's been around the game a long time. He's only been in the NBL a short amount of time. And he really knew what he'd done in achieving that. And obviously Matt Weston played a big part in that. So I just think anytime you can bring a Bryce in, it changes everything. Then to go and re-sign Trez, which I wasn't sure that was going to happen. I just thought maybe Trez would have something pop up overseas. He's obviously a guy who's experienced a lot in the NBA, and I thought maybe even for him, he might want to say, well, what's Europe look like this year? It might be more money, different world, different look, but he did love Adelaide. So for them to go and bring back Trez, and then you complement it with Zylan Cheatham as the last import, they've really just gone and said, no, we are here to win. And anytime you do that, it puts a lot of pressure on you. But you'd arguably sit here right now and say, well, they've got the horses to go and do that. Can they get it right?
Now, in recent weeks, there's been a lot made of what happened last season. The words between KD obviously saying he hated the way he was treated in Adelaide, and then Montrez responding saying he wasn't treated badly in the Adelaide 36ers last season. You were in that locker room and a senior voice in that locker room. Can you give us an insight into what that locker room was like from day to day and just why it didn't work, I guess?
Yeah, it's a hard one. Like, obviously, the timing of this for them, I don't think is ideal, because I don't feel like it was in context of a game coming up. It just seems like it's happened out of it in a preseason interview, which we've done multiple times. And it stemmed off KD's comments about Adelaide, right? So I think Trez has almost arrived back in the country, and the first thing he's hearing in an interview is about KD, and he's probably in his head, he's going, why are we still talking about this dude? And then KD, in a way, is still talking about Adelaide when he's now with Sydney. So look, KD has a certain feel to the way he thinks. I don't know if it was an after the season in the negotiations where he feels disrespected. There's no hiding. Things throughout the season went pear-shaped at times for our group. We just had I described us last year multiple times, and we were good, we were the best team in the league. When we were bad, we were the worst team in the league. There was no real in the middle, and that's why we ended up bundling out when we did. Part of the reason we were really good is we had talent, and Kendrick and Trez together at times when it worked were probably the best duo in the league. But when it didn't work, it turned into a result which none of us could control, and different personalities. And look, I had a really good relationship with Trez. I still do. We both had young kids. I felt like he really respected kind of what I'd done in my professional career, and he felt like I was someone he could bounce stuff off, and we could talk about a whole heap of different things. So Trez definitely is a personality, and he's not one to shy away from telling the truth. Trez is a guy that knows who he is. And one of the things for me that I could respect with him was he came in and gave us all the respect, and he just wanted to get back to playing and enjoying basketball. And we felt like as a group, we could give him that platform. Kadee's at the other end. Kadee's coming through, and first time in Australia last year. He's trying to make it back to the NBA. The NBL was just kind of a stop in the road for him. To see him come back, it honestly did surprise me, just because what he's saying now and some of the situations that popped out last year, obviously things went on behind closed doors where it resulted in arguments or things not clicking in the right way. And so often that experience can say, well, I'm not coming back to the NBL. Now, part of me sits here and says you felt so disrespected that you still came back to the league. So that's why I don't know if this is a result of him talking has come out of the season in general or extra stuff that I don't really know about. But look, it creates a talking point. I think from my point of view, I always tried last year to really help KD wherever I could. I understood it was his first time overseas. I understood he was away from family. Like I have my whole career, I felt like I've always tried to put other people's best interests at the forefront before my own, and that was no different to KD. I tried to talk to him as much as possible, help him wherever I saw fit. If somewhere along the lines he thinks that was people not looking after him, then that's kind of disappointing from my end, because I felt like a bunch of us really tried to do the best we could to make him feel at home. And for Adelaide, I actually think they've gone the other way, where maybe signing Bryce allows that too. I feel like they've gone the way of like, we have moved on from last year. We've gone and got pieces to help us move on, and Sydney have gone and got a hell of a player. Like, there's no doubt. KD is talented. One of the most talented guys I've walked on the floor with, played against at training every day. Now it's how those pieces mix into their new environments that really is going to matter.
Were you surprised, considering all this and your experiences there, that initially there was talk about Adelaide trying to get KD back? Were you surprised to hear that?
Yeah, I was. I'm not going to lie. I just thought, with what had gone on throughout the year at different times, and once again, not all on him. It was a mix. There were so many different factors at that time amongst the group, amongst the staff, amongst people in the office. Like, sometimes the mix of it just was not right, and it showed out in the wrong way. But when it went so quickly to wanting him to come back and trying to re-sign him, I just thought that was an interesting move. And at that time, I hadn't made my decision where I was going with my own personal career. So I was, in a way, more worried about what I was doing. But it was surprising, given there was a little bit of the clash that we'd seen and everyone had seen in person at games or behind the scenes, that they really moved heavily into focusing on going down that route. And then obviously something has happened in that conversation that's really shifted the needle the other way, where it's turned the whole dial off. And now it's got him sitting in an interview 4 or 5 months later saying he feels disrespected.
Now, taking it forward, you spoke about like the sort of Jekyll and Hyde nature of the team last season, where you guys at your best were the best team in the league. And I think no game shows that probably more than your last game last year, where you were up at half. So I'm sorry to bring that up, Jase. But and then you lost big leads as well. Now, taking that into this season, do you think essentially switching out Bryce for KD, or the other way around, changes all that for the 36ers?
Yeah, I'm not worried about the chemistry, and I'm not trying to throw jabs by doing this either. But like, a lot of our group did get along for majority of the year. Yeah, we had times where we clashed, but every year in sport. There's times where people are like, there's egos and there's everything to deal with where people are trying to win in a competitive environment in one of the toughest leagues in the world. So for a lot of the time we did get it right. We just probably didn't get it right early enough where we could really hang our hat on that. We weren't a team that had gone through enough early on where we knew who we were in those situations. So for me, I don't look at Adelaide now. I'm not worried about the chemistry part that maybe people have been asking questions on the last few years. I'm more worried about how does he put those pieces together of having that's no real point guard. They've got no real natural point guard. They've got no real four man. Trez showed that he can play the four and Isaac the five, and that can work. But they don't have a real natural pick and pop big or a floor spacer. So they've kind of got a lot of guys who can play multiple spots. And so for me, that's the real interesting part about how does that come together.
We spoke about the trio of bigs they've got this year previously with Isaac Humphries, Silent Cheatham, and obviously Montrezl Harrell. Are you surprised that they all have shown the ability that they can shoot, but none of them really have shown the willingness to put up, volume threes or be a willing shooter? Is that a real concern with this team?
Well, don't tell Trez that because Trez won't shy away from shooting threes. He's not scared. But a stat that I remember Mike saying to Trez last year was, I forget the exact percentage, but he was like, your numbers when you shoot the ball from 3 feet set are far above when you put the ball to the floor. And so I don't know if that's what you want to be relying on. Trez at the end of the day does his best work on the block, just off the block where he can really make plays. But that's the part for me is who do you start? Now, last year, Trez, before when he got in, he came off the bench. He was happy to come off the bench. Like even later on in that stint, he was like, "Bring me off the bench." I remember you saying to Jay, to me and you can come off the bench together. We can get things working with that second crew. I'm happy to come off the bench. Now, a year on, is he still thinking the same way? I don't know. I could ask him, but it's all well and good to say that till you actually have to do it. Maybe that is the best thing for me. If I was Adelaide, bringing Trez off the bench and starting Zylan and Isaac together, I think gives you a bit of a combo. It allows probably Trez to now come in the 5 spot where arguably he's at his best. And then you can slide him to the 4 as the game goes on and figure out who's the best on that night. This floor spacing is going to be a thing at times, but then there's a whole other part of me that says if you're going to sit off and then you got DJ and Bryce in corners coming off handoffs and you got no big up there to support it, it's a long night. So if they get it right, they've got 2 of the most dangerous scorers coming off pin downs and handoffs, where if you're really sitting and helping, you're giving up open shots and you've got genuine rim roll threats. So it's going to be about getting that combo right. But if they can, and that's why I think they're the most dangerous team, if they can, it's going to be a very exciting team to watch and very good team.
I know I winded this back a little bit, but speaking about Trez and your relationship with Trez, obviously we've seen his character in the NBL since he's been in the competition, how he gets the crowd going, how, his personality and everything. Can you give us an insight into what that personality is like? We've seen, some locker room footage where I think he might have even given you shoes for your birthday or something like that. Can you give us an insight into that?
He's just a personality. Like he's just, he's the loudest person in the room. If Trez walked into my house or into a Virgin Lounge or Qantas Lounge right now, you would know he's there because he's got that presence about him. I often say he means well. Sometimes it comes across not in the greatest way, but it's more just he's loud and he's a big guy and intimidating to some. But he's a big kid. Like he collects all types of different things. He collects shoes. He loves basketball. He loves winning. And sometimes that's where the lines can blur. Like that competitive to want to win can obviously take things a certain way, but he's just a large personality, and kind of what you see is what you get in games. That personality is, if you're all up to training and there's no one there, that's what he's like at trainings too. He kind of is up and about and he wants to win every training session. And, so you kind of, what you see is what you get. And I think in a way that's what Adelaide did appreciate last year, was a guy that came in and engaged with the crowd. Like at the end of the day, being a very good basketball player is one thing. Being a showman is a whole other thing. Comes naturally to some, not to others. Trez is a showman.
And we love to see it too. We'll see Trez 2.0 this season with the 36ers. But building on, them this season, we had a piece from Daniel Sabatino, who's part of our basketball.com.au family, with Matt Weston, talking about how he went about recruiting this team, focusing on obviously characters and, a lot of sort of defensive-minded guys as well as shooting. What did you think of hearing Matty Weston's thoughts in that piece, mate?
Yeah, no, I thought it was good. I've known Matt a long time. And so I probably maybe last year expected too much from Matty, given that it's hard to turn things around really quick. And he made some decisions that some didn't agree with, some might have agreed with, some were shocked by. But sometimes that's what's needed. And you'd arguably sit here right now and say, well, in the space of 18 months, he's done a pretty good job. Now, the next part for them is, can they go win basketball games to really confirm that? And he's maybe got a little bit of a head start by being able to go and recruit Bryce and get Bryce to Perth. So, but no, he has to deserve some credit for it. And I think they're right. Like, for me, what they've gone and done is, and I think they've even said this, I think maybe even Grant Kelly came out and said it, they've gone and really invested heavily in their top 5, 6 guys. And not to say the bench isn't of value, they are in their own right, but their bench are guys who have had minimal roles on teams, sometimes larger than others, but they've been sporadic roles. So they're not really a group that's going to sit there and whinge about minutes, I wouldn't think. There are guys that are going to be ready to go for whatever their minutes may be. Now, the next part to that is injuries, all different things play a point, foul trouble. Can those guys step up over the course of an actual season, not preseason, over a regular season and finals when it really matters? And some of them are old enough now that I think they can take that step. And arguably your role right now is, how can I make DJ, Bryce, Zylan, Isaac, and Trez's life easier? If you can do that, you're going to play minutes. It's really is that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to be the side to watch to start this NBL season, that's for sure. Now, mate, moving on to the rest of the competition, who are your top contenders? After the preseason, we saw some preseason blitz action. Rarely we have actually seen a lot of teams have scrimmages behind closed doors, but from what you've seen about this preseason and the rosters that have been there, who are your top contenders going into this season and why?
I mean, we've spoke about it. It is the most wide open league we have seen. I can't remember. Like, not like this. Like, sometimes at the start of a season, a few teams have got some injuries, or a couple of teams just haven't got their pieces in yet, or they're just not as good as what others look like on paper. Like, we've seen it before. I just don't think right now you could sit there and say, here's my top 4 and be absolutely sure of it. And I don't even think, to the next point, first round teams versing each other, if you're a betting man, probably taking my money somewhere else to bet, because it's too up in the air. And I think that's exciting. I read early on people really like saying, oh, United aren't going to be a top 4, top 6 team. I don't agree with that. I think Melbourne United are very good. I think they've got better. Dino does a great job of recruiting with a good balance of that kind of, they've got natural 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and they've got backups. And it's kind of, you already know people's roles. But this year, they've gone and got like a Milton Doyle. Now, okay, maybe Milton's year last year wasn't as what people expect in previous years, but who knows? People sometimes in their environments, it just grows old. And Tassie had a bit of a down year last year for what they're kind of shown to be. I just think Milton going to United is just, he's got Chris Golding sitting on a wing. He's got Shea Illy running around doing what Shea does, being the heartbeat of the group. They bring in a guy like Finn Delaney, who just makes plays, does little things, has been a great player in championship teams for years. And then they bring in the big fella. And so now you say, well, he's got his Will Magnay. He loved playing with Will because Will could go and get lobs and all that stuff. And now he's got something similar. I just think Milton's going to thrive. And then that's not even including guys like Walker, Dash. I think Walker's a great pickup for them because I think he gives them a different look to maybe Shea and Delhi weren't the same, different body types, but they weren't, I guess, natural scorers, natural shooters, where he seems like I can get buckets if you need me to get buckets. And so I think having that kind of second guy, yeah, I just think, and knowing what Dino is like and being around Dino, I feel like they're a group that will be able to get started early and then set themselves up for the back end of the year. So I'm actually pretty high on United.
Yeah, I think it's an underrated signing, and people aren't really talking about the addition of Tyson Walker and the addition, the impact he'll make, especially Jay Early, and maybe some concerns around his health. Obviously, we've seen him miss several, significant parts of the season before. So, Melbourne United won. I believe you're heading out west for your second contender as well.
Yeah, Perth, my good old friend that I used to rebound for, John Riley. I just I Perth have done the old waiting game, and I feel like that hasn't been done for some time. Like early days of my career, waiting was the best thing because you would wait till now. We used to start a little bit later, but you would wait and people would start falling off NBA rosters and different things. And it was the perfect time for an NBL team. And so in recent years, it gets a bit more muddy that time of year because we start earlier and the NBA stuff hasn't happened. And Perth kind of did that. We're just going to wait. And there was a report, and I don't know his name. There was a report that came out after the Blitz about them going after the Illawarra guard. And I can't help but think that maybe that was just a false story. I don't know who planted it, but I don't see how you go from signing a guy that's trialing with Illawarra to a guy that they've got who by all reports and by his first stint against a Japanese team can get things done. And I think that complements their roster really, really well. I think this year what you're going to see from Perth in compared to their Bryce era, if we want to call that, they had so many pieces around Bryce. So it was never just him getting it done by himself, but it was built around Bryce. You had early days, your Damian Martins and your Redditch, your Wagstaff, your Matt Knights. You had those pieces around him that could allow Bryce to be great, and they got things done around him. Where now I think what you're going to see with Perth is I think Windler's going to have more of a role. I think Doolittle's going to be trying to really stamp his authority. I love him. I wish we last year got him in Adelaide. Or
Can you give us an insight into that? I believe there's a story behind that.
Yeah, I find people that can play the 3 and the 4 in our league are your ultimate almost cheat codes to an extent. Like those guys that can really be 3s and then swing to the 4 and maybe take advantage of bigger 4s. And Doolittle's the perfect guy. Can be the 3, can be the 4, can carry it as the 4. And he was just a guy I thought, I was like, especially in Adelaide, you're always saying, well, can we get the help? I was like, can we get him? How do we get him? And then I was spoken about the management. Can we go after him? I knew JR loved him. I knew Perth loved him. But he was just someone who I was high on, playing against him, seeing the impact he had, seeing that he didn't really care about himself. It was more like he just got stuff done and when it fell his way. I just think he will have a big year this year with more responsibility. And then we haven't even spoke about JLA. Obviously, they picked up Lat and Sunday as well. Henshaw comes back. Like, things have just fallen into place for them. A little bit of it's great recruiting. A little bit they were willing to be patient. And I think now they'll reap the rewards of being able to really kind of put themselves in that top echelon of the groups.
Yeah, well, Perth are actually my tip to win it, and JLA is my tip to win MVP. So should be a big year for them. And what a journey it's been for Christian Doolittle to have such a massive impact in this league, considering if you remember when he was added late, just before the start of the season, a lot of people and Red Army fans were sort of not so certain about his recruitment, considering some past issues as well.
So I think we played against him one of the first games he came out. And from memory, he didn't get off to a great start in terms of he wasn't lighting it up. But I remember Jacob Wiley. He's a great guy, great teammate, great person. I love playing alongside him. He said, no, he's going to be okay. He's a very good basketball player. He's a good dude. I think there was a little bit of the just classic certain situations in Europe or Australia, wherever it sometimes don't work out. I think it was more a case of that for Doolittle. And it turns out Jacob Wiley was 100% correct because ever since then he's got better and better. And I I think he re-signed with Perth last year for multiple years. So Wiley told me and I believed him and he was 100% correct.
Yeah, huge year for Perth ahead, especially for John Rillie in his 4th year in charge of the Wildcats. Now we're going to head to your concerns. Who's the first team on your concern list?
The first team on my concern list is Brisbane. I'm really interested because I do feel like they've actually like as I said, there's no real weak link in the league this year. Not at the moment anyway. And they've gone and got some talent. Like Jalen Adams is another guy. I was like, how do I get him on my team? I know I'm trying to recruit everyone, but there's certain guys that you see and you think if they played for us, geez, what a talent to have. And he was one of them. And last year in Sydney didn't go right for him in whatever ways. I don't really know the complete ins and outs, but there was stories coming out of there, and you've seen him at times sitting for long periods. You've seen him not playing late in games. He got hurt. So they've brought him in. They've kept Casey. They've got some real pieces there. I am concerned about how Stu Lash goes as a head coach. I was actually excited to see kind of what his footprint would be at the Blitz because I thought, first year head coach, maybe speaking on what I'd be like, but I just think first year head coach, you don't have the ability to be a Dean Vickerman and sitting at the end of the bench and letting your assistants coach or watching them be. I think he had to have control of that group from the start to really, for his own self, just get a feel for coaching. Like I remember Andre Lamanis, when we had that COVID period, he felt like he hadn't coached for so long that he felt like he had to just use the preseason games to get used to going again and the flow of games. And so I didn't feel like he really asserted himself that way in the preseason. And from the reports around that group too, that is exactly how it played out. D-Mac and Vandy doing a lot of speaking, a lot of talking, a lot of in-huddle stuff. So I'm just really interested in how that plays out because my dad once said to me, and I've always stuck by it, if I ever was a head coach, I'd be getting the best assistants I can. He said, I'd rather be the donkey with really good assistants winning games because of them than the donkey with bad assistants losing because of me and them. And I've always believed that getting the best staff around you is the right move. But I also do feel like we live in a space now where if you're not really the head coach and you're not really taking control of it at the right times, playing groups will quickly fall away. And if they start looking to the guy next to you, not you, it normally isn't a good sign. So I'm interested to see how he takes control of that group because the talent's there, the pieces are there. Brisbane's been a city that I loved being a part of. Brisbane became my second home, that Southeast Queensland region. And I know how much that fan base, the support they show up each week. They deserve to see some winning basketball. I hope they get it, but it is a concern given what I've seen so far. But once again, preseason's preseason.
Yeah, I've said probably, the last couple of weeks and during the preseason with the players they've added, it's probably one of the most talented rosters they've had since they've been back in the league. But, it's probably a bad time to be good considering everyone around the league is good. So it'd be interesting to see where's Brisbane goes. I think one concern for me is probably the body language of Jalen Adams during the preseason, especially their last couple of games. I don't know if you've seen too much of that, Jase.
Yeah, I have, and I normally wouldn't be concerned because from a player, and probably him more than most, he's played in the league, 3 years now? This may be his 4th or his 3rd. He probably didn't want to be playing at the Blitz. And so there's an element of that, but part of me also says you're at the Blitz, you're here, you're playing, you're with a new team now, you're not with Sydney anymore. Now's the time, just even if you don't go at full pace, but it's just to show that you're enjoying your environment. And that's where I think as a leader of a group, especially him now, you're not just the American that's coming in and you're going to fill a bit of a role and whatever. He actually needs to show a bit of the leadership with that group for them to be really good. And I actually think people would look to him in that way because of how much they respect his talent. So I can see the player side of we're at the Blitz. I don't really care about the result. I've got to play because I'm being told to play. But part of me also says new coach, new club. It's probably not the best impression, but he does strike me as a guy that come this weekend when the real lights turn on, he'll be there ready to go.
Yeah, and following on from that, I think one of the games at the Blitz where he was really on was the game against the Sydney Kings. Now we can
Yes.
understand why he was switched on with that one, but hopefully we see the best of Jalen Adams. Now, there is a number two team on your concern list. Jace, who's that?
It's actually the Kings.
You got
I'm not.
hometown, hey?
Yeah, I'm not. I only because they just lost Lepepe, so it's not actually their own. It's not by any fault of what they've done. I just losing him. The way I saw it, I think he was going to start over Suarez. I think he was going to be their starting five along Zave. They did it for portions last year, and he has a great impact. He screens, he rebounds. He's got this no bullshit mentality of I just go out and play hard, hit people, and I can shoot it a little bit. So when you lose him, and they've got some guys on the marquee that they probably don't want to move off the marquee list, it impacts where you go to now to replace that. Now, maybe their answer is let's see how we go for the first 4 weeks. We feel like we're a good enough team and what we've built here with bringing a KD in, bringing Delhi in. We've got Jalen back healthy. We've got Zave. We brought in Suarez. We got Bull. Like they've got a list of talent. Let's not lie. But losing that 5-man piece is where they were kind of short. And so losing him, it just raised some concerns because I feel like it's the thing they've got to play. I said earlier in the year and behind closed doors about a few months ago to Jalen, are they talking about playing you at the 4? Because I actually think if I was them, I would look to at times play JG at the 4 and Zave at the 5. Zave's a natural rim roller. Jalen's shots improved. You can play Bull at the 3 with KD and Delhi and really get out and run with that group and then give Zave that natural only rim rolling presence. But I don't think that's your answer for a long stint, depending on who you play. But that's a concern. And then the next part I really want to see is how it works between Delhi and KD. Delhi, been around Delhi since I was 17 years old at the AIS, had an incredible career. He's now made that move from Melbourne to Sydney. But Delhi is naturally a guy who makes people better around him through his voice, yes, but with the ball in his hands. Delhi plays with the ball in his hands and he makes plays off on balls and he gets people open and he directs the offense. KD has shown last year and throughout, he also needs the ball in his hands to be truly effective. I don't think he's at his most comfortable without it. He might be in a space now where he thinks he can show he can do that. I just want to see it for a long period of time and not just 1 or 2 games. I'd like to see how that works out over the course of a season with one guy having it more than another, because ultimately that's how it works out. Not everyone, they both can't carry the ball each possession and just alternate. It doesn't really work that way either of like you carry it once, I carry it once. So finding that balance mixed with the loss of a 5-man, I think that's the next part. But when you got Brian Gorgian on the sidelines and you bring in a guy like Andrew Bogut, they're also pretty fortunate to have some great pieces there to figure it out. And I'm really excited for Jalen Galloway this year too. I think he's going to have a massive year and he's my early tip for most improved.
Yeah, just on Jalen Galloway, speaking to some NBA scouts during the week, which is a story we'll have on basketball.com.au. I think he's on their radar again as well. So a big year for Jalen, a big year for the Sydney Kings, looking to bounce back from that disappointing season last season. Now, we are, for round 1, going to go to your tips, Jace, and we're going to keep a tally to see how you go with this.
Oh, jeez.
So we're going to see. We're going to start with round 1. Obviously, Illawarra not in action because they're at the FIBA Intercontinental Cup in Singapore. The defending champs out for round 1. But the season starts with Tassie and Melbourne in Tassie on Thursday night. Who'd you tip in that one?
I mean, this is exciting too, because the one thing I forgot, like Milton Doyle returns to Tassie. So right off the back, first game, you've got that Melbourne Tassie battle, which has been a bit of a rivalry probably because of their grand finals and everything. I think, and now listen, Tassie's a hard place to win, but I just think United, they're ready to go. And I think for me, I respect the hell out of Scott Roth. I think he's an incredible coach. I think what he's done with that program is really, really just, it's rarely been seen in sport across multiple codes. But they've had a lot of change this year. This is probably their first year where they've had a significant amount of change. And I just think that even though they're great in Tassie, they might take a little bit to get that all sorted together. being at home gives them a benefit of the doubt, but I am going to go with United to get that win on the road and hopefully help me look really good.
That's dangerous, mate, because Scott Roth hears this. He's going to mention in the post-match press conference. He's going to run around the court after mentioning your name. So, interesting tip. Going to go to Friday night.
Whoa, wait, are you giving me your tip in this too, or are you going to hold me accountable? Or was this just on me?
Well, I thought we were just going with you, so I'll go different. I'll go Tassie in that.
Yeah, okay. One. I think we can take your opinion on this too.
Okay, cool. All right, I'll go Tassie. We'll go different ones. Friday night in New Zealand. One of the teams you're concerned about, the Brisbane Bullets, head to New Zealand to take on the Breakers. Who you got in that one?
I have New Zealand. I am a little bit nervous about New Zealand though, because I haven't heard that everyone's healthy coming back from that Japan trip they had. So I might get a bit of egg on my face here if they are a bit depleted. But I think if they've got everyone on board at home, first game, they've obviously gone a massive transition in the offseason to get back to who they were as the Breakers and bringing in guys like Dylan Boucher and that. I just think there's an element of at home, first time kind of getting back to who they were and their identity. I just think that's a big moment for them to kind of kick off their journey, and traveling New Zealand's a tough place to play. And we'll find out how Brisbane go on the road in a hostile environment.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. And Rob Baker, I think, showed what Breakers fans could be in store for with some of those performances against the Japanese team. So I'll go New Zealand as well. On Saturday night, we got Cairns, who are also a little bit depleted. Sam Woodberg missing significant time. They made an import change with Ashton Hagens out, Andrew Andrews in, but a revamped Cairns side heading down to Melbourne to take on the Phoenix. What's your tip?
Southeast. Even though they've just fired an import, I don't think he really showed out in the preseason anyway, and I think they got a lot done around him, and they've got pieces to kind of. They got Malik Lewis and Glove and a bunch of guys that can play through multiple spots. So with Cairns, once again, Cairns are a really exciting group. I think they're gonna look at what 40 does with sometimes groups that aren't as talented as others. I just think once he gets that group going, but losing Wardenberg hurts. He's very good. He does a lot of little things. It's going to put some pressure on guys like Kyron Galloway and some more responsibility on them. So I think it's going to be a tough game, but I do think Southeast at home, I think that makes sense.
And just quietly, we're hearing that Rain Smith and Mort Mag might be still out for that game as well. So that'll be interesting.
Exactly. And he obviously Rain had a great college career, has come out, got to make that Boomers team to go to the Asia Cup, which is a massive tip of the hat to him and where he's at and where he's going. But also playing in the NBL now, it's a different world. So for him to come off not much of a preseason that I've seen, to if he does come straight in, he's going to take some time to find his feet. And if he's out, that's a piece that they've kind of built this team around, having a guy like him come in and really be able to space the floor and score for them.
So you're going Southeast Melbourne despite the injuries. I'm going to go with Cairns. I think Adam Ford will look to make a statement with that team, and we know the way he can motivate teams. So I'm going
He
Cairns
sure can.
In that one. And then Tassie, big weekend for them after their game against Melbourne on Thursday night, heading across to Perth to take on the Wildcats on Saturday night. That's a big game as well.
Massive. And I mean, that's a tough round for Tassie to open up with. Obviously, the home game against United, then go on the road to Perth, where Perth are prime, ready to go after a week of training and a couple of preseason games. So, look, I'm obviously going to go with Perth. It sounds weird to tip Tassie to go 0-2 to start a competition when they've been
Scott
so
Roth
good.
will be on the phone. So will Will Magno, by the way.
I know. Listen, I've always realised that when you start doing tips, you can't please everyone, and I think Tassie are going to win some games to be thereabouts, but I do think they'll find some time, and this is more a result of also that Perth trip's a tough trip for anyone, let alone double header. The one thing that might help Tassie is the first game will get any kind of jitters out of their system of the season up and running. They'll be in a bit of a route. We've played one game, and Perth can possibly get off to a slow start. But if it goes the other way and Perth come out full of excitement and make some shots early, it'll turn into a long trip of that doubleheader. And I just think Perth are going to be really exciting to watch. They've got to put it together, but JR's got some pieces to work with, and they won't want to lose first home game at RAC Arena, that's for sure.
Last round, last game of the first round, Melbourne hosting the New Zealand Breakers. To finish the round, I assume you've got United going 2-0, Jace.
I've got United going 2-0 and sitting on top of the table to start the season. Once again, New Zealand, I just don't know enough around who's healthy and who's not, but also that trip of playing in New Zealand, flying across to Melbourne, backing up, United first home game. It will be interesting for United. Like, Chris hasn't played much in the preseason, so he's going to now come in and play a doubleheader. But I think having a guy like Milton Doyle now probably lessens the need for Chris to play massive minutes, because they can slide some guys around to help him get to full health if that's why he hasn't played a lot. And so I think they'll finish off 2-0 and what will also be a really great round to see where people are at.
Yep, so those, I'll tip Melbourne United as well. And those Jason and my tips for round one, we'll see. We'll put them against each other and see who wins by the end of the season. We'll put something on the line by the end of the year as well. But those are our tips for round one. Now, Jason, I know we've gone a little bit over time. We want to try and keep this around half an hour going forward for Cut to the Chase. But first one, we'll make it a big one. But lastly, to finish, mate, can you give the listeners and people who are tuned into basketball.com.au a bit of a preview on what's to come with your pieces going forward?
No, I just, when we first spoke about this and I spoke to you about this kind of opportunity to come on board, I was excited to cover all things, not just NBL. Obviously, the NBL I've been a part of for so long, but basketball in general. I think we're at a tremendous time with what we're watching some of the junior Australian teams do overseas, both women and men. With where the NBL and now WNBL after rebranding are headed. So I'm really excited to cover a whole range of different topics, keep up to date with lots of the kids in college as well. And also one of the things that I am excited to is bringing different people on. Like, I don't want this just to be about sometimes my words, just sometimes we'll get some pinch hitters of some guys that you want to hear from who are currently involved, who are maybe overseas or have been around the league a long time. And I think it's always good to keep people's opinions and have people who know so much about the game involved. So I'm hoping I can keep it very, very much a variety of things, but just something that people can enjoy listening to. And feel free to always send in anything or any questions, because that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Big things ahead on Cut It to the Jase. Now, that's it for our first episode. Thanks to Darren Barker for producing this, and we look forward to some big things going ahead, and obviously a huge round one in the NBL. So we'll catch everyone next edition of Cut It to the Jase.